Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. How are you all on this fine Friday? Is it, it's do you all do Valentine's Day everywhere? Like, everywhere? I mean, I assume a lot of places do it, but I actually have no idea if it's an American or, I mean, if it's done elsewhere, but yeah, if you were, make sure to don't forget to do something with your loved ones if you have any later on today, and don't forget about it. Um, just a healthy reminder. You do in Florida? Yeah, okay. It's global. Okay, yeah. I mean, I figured it was in like most Western countries, I guess, but I just didn't know how many or how much. Um, Self-love. uh, None of the financial stuff. I'll talk about some of the financial stuff here. None of the financial stuff should be any surprise. If you watched the PR versus PSR video, literally none of it is a surprise. It's we know all of this. I mean, again, everything is available publicly. That's the part about United that I always say about the finances is if if you doubt something or if you really want to know, it takes some financial literacy, and then you can just read the reports yourself. You know, like everything's public. None of the stuff that's being said is private. None of the things that I've shared, even on our finances, particularly, is private information. I mean, there's a little bit of like hints and things like that, um, but it's all different. It's all different. It's all available. Is this news different to your video? What news? Sorry. Um, I'm gonna talk about PSR because when I posted the PSR versus PR PSR video, I had the assumption that they were not so settled on replacing the rules for PSR for next season, and that, as far as I know, I mean, and that was what I assumed based on my understanding of from people I've spoken with, that there was a little bit more of an expectation that PSR would be remaining. That's why I continued to include it. And in the vote, they kept it because there's still ongoing questions, disputes, things like that all over the place. Does that mean City will be in trouble? No, it doesn't really mean anything. It just means there's lots of questions still in place, lots of things still going, and we really don't know what the rules will be at the end of the day. We don't know what the rules will be, where they'll end up next season, but they'll probably vote on a new rules later. But we don't know that is not going to include still some rules on losses and things like that when they eventually get to that moment. We'll get to Tottenham and injuries and stuff. I'll see if I hear anything between now and then towards the end of today's live, as I sent some questions out about the injuries to see if I find out anything in particular. It's a little confusing because, it's a little bit confusing, because part of the implication of Amorim's answers were that there were setbacks to players returning from injuries, like Evans and Lindelof, Shaw, Mason Mount. According to Laurie's article, to Laurie's article here. Hold on a second. I was just reading it as well, and the way that he put it sounded a little bit different to. Oh, okay, hold on. Let me find it really quick here, and then I'll talk about it a little bit later. He said, The likes of Luke Shaw, Johnny Evans, and Mason Mount are all working their way back to fitness after time out of the team. Asked if the issues were setbacks to players recovering from injuries, Amram replied, "Yes, we will see at the weekend." So it's not totally clear because the context of question and answers and press conferences and these things is always kind of missed. Like I feel like it's always we're always hearing it like incorrectly or in weird contexts, but like this is like the context of how the question and answer happened is a little bit important to to his response and what it means, because if he answered that the issues are setbacks, then it's likely players who were returning, because Amram also, I believe, said we don't have players back, then the context might be more setbacks from players returning. So I don't know. But anyway, I have a lot I want to get into today. So we'll get to that. I'll get to that, a little bit of more of that by the end. I want to talk about the striker aspect. I did a video on this. It's a priority for the summer. I want to talk about PSR, sell to buy, what it means. Don't think it means what people think it means. But it's also nothing we didn't already technically know, but I just want to demonstrate it a little bit. So yeah, sell to buy, striker, our budget, what it's likely to be, Sir Jim meeting with fans and flying in amidst all of these budget cuts and things like that. And then talk about Tottenham and some other transfer stuff first and foremost. But to start, let's do okay. 1 second. Apologies. Should we be optimistic? Sure. Hopefully Casemiro leaves this. Well, that's part of the thing, like, when people got to think about sell to buy a little bit and what it all means. It doesn't always mean what you think it means in the same kind of context. So, all right, let's do it. Okay, let's talk about strikers. So I did a video the other day. Obviously on 5 strikers that I believe United have been kind of keeping an eye on and looking at. Number 1, obviously we're talking about the names that I included were Liam Delap, Benjamin Šeško, Samu Aghawa, Victor Osimhen, and Victor Gyökeres. Now, we've talked for a little while about since Ornstein did an article a while back, and I've said a few times I don't think it's particularly nailed on at all that Gyökeres joins United. There's a lot of other clubs interested in him. He could definitely go elsewhere, but I think it's important to note that, yeah, I mean, this is a priority, and United have to do something about it. No doubt about that. Based on all of my kind of conclusions as I reached, I feel like I have a serious, like, I have some concerns with specifically one like Liam Delap, in terms of how he plays. Like, I don't know what all of y'all's view are on strikers. If you watched that video, I have concerns over something like that, because when I look at, I'll talk about Kenda, don't worry. When I look at United, I don't really think that we necessarily need another roadrunner as a striker. Delap is good as a runner, and almost all his chances are coming on the break. picking up the ball, running towards goal, shooting, right? But he's literally never played in a team against loaded boxes, in a team that has possession, those are my concerns. Like, there's some decent skill set there, but it's another Højlund to me. He's the same player. Like the same player we thought we were buying when we bought Højlund. That's kind of how I see it. Now he's already in the Premier League. He's doing well. He's better than Højlund, but stylistically, maybe too similar in that respect. So like when I was looking at him, I'm looking at his like where he's playing football right now. Like he's not in the box, like, and it's not to say that he couldn't become that player, but he's 22, 6'1". He's fast, he's strong, he's a good shooter. He's got a lot of good traits as a forward, but he's never played in a team where he's got to sit, in the box. That's the part that, when he played last season in the championship, he was played almost as like a right-sided forward or something, but he's never been a box nine. He's never been a guy where in the box, you're in possession, you're dominating the game, who's going to score goals and breaks teams down, because we can't do that. We don't have anybody who's good inside the penalty box. We have no players who are actually good and instinctual inside the penalty box. And then I look at you look at Victor Osimhen and where he's played, right? This is in Europa League, but obviously you've watched him. This is a box nine. This is a box nine, right? I looked at Agawa because I quite like him as well as a young player, and you look at where he plays in the Portuguese league, he's a box nine. And these are in high possession based teams. And I look at that and I think, well, Rasmus Højlund, we already got a player who doesn't play in the box, who drops around in different spaces and runs around towards goal. It's not it for me, and one could make the comparison to Gyökeres in terms of off-ball runs and stuff, but Gyökeres spends most of his time in the box as well. I don't think that we need a striker who doesn't play in the penalty area. That's just my thoughts. Like when I look at it, you look at Šeško, you have the same problem. He's a drifter. He's not a box player. We need a 9, man. We need a 9. Like, we need, I don't know how many times I can look at a team and say, we need a 9. Look at Erling Haaland, right? I don't think Rasmus Højlund drops deep just because there's no crosses going to the box. In the box, he has very little instincts often, and he's making the wrong runs very often. But it doesn't matter. We need someone who's very, very good at number 9. Because we need to focus on building a team around that, right? When you look at like strikers, you want to see like Muppet or something. They're unlikely to teams that play. Even he spends a little bit more time here, but teams that don't play possession-based football, that's kind of the issue. Is like we're transitioning into a possession-based team overall, and lower on the counters, higher on possession. We need to build a team that we're building a team for possession, so we need to buy a striker that's going to fit the future, not one to handle it right now, right? There are players who can score on the run in quick transition when it's time, and in the box. I think that's Osimhen. I think that's Gyökeres, and frankly, I think that's Agawa too, because I've seen him do all of that as well. There's a lot of guys right now on the striker market that I don't think that we don't know if we become a ball dominant team. Are they going to be good, sitting around the box, moving and manipulating, the defense, and playing? I always go back to like Cavani. I don't know if they'll have his season here, like this season. And his movement was insane and all over the place, but we can see that when time came up, he would get in the box and score goals as well. And he was player has to be able to do both, drop around and score inside the box, and score as well with a lot of different avenues. The other thing that I would add here that I have a real concern about with Delap, but I also have a concern with Gyökeres, is headed goals. Liam Delap does not score with his head. And that's part of my concern. Now, he's good left foot, right foot, which is a positive. Good morning, Alejandro. That is a positive, but he has not really scored any headed goals. And so again, I look at, like, when you're talking about when you do have to put the ball in the air, when you do have to get crosses in the box, who's going to score those goals? Who's going to attack those? Who's gonna make that happen? Oh, that's Europa League for him. I mean, obviously, Victor. 5-headed goals. He's great in those locations. So I've got serious concerns that as we progress to a more possession-based team, we are going to be crossing to him, though. I mean, the reason you're buying guys like Kenda, like Dorgu, all of that is to hit the ball in from wide to in. And am I delusional in saying Rasmus and Delap are similar profiles? No, they're the same. We don't cross in the box anyway. We don't need to buy players to solve the shit way we've been playing for 6 years. We don't need to solve players to solve the shit way we've been playing for 6 years. We need to buy players for how we want to play football. We need to buy players for how we want to play football. We don't do anything well right now, so there's no point buying anyone on the basis of what we do today. We've got to buy players for how we want to play moving forward. We should be crossing. Yeah, we should be crossing now. We should be crossing into the box. We should be getting the ball in more often than not. Now, does that mean a lot of times it's going to be on the ground? Yes. But we need low crosses. Low crosses are a major part of Amram's play. Cutbacks, things like that, right? We need to become a team that puts the ball into the box and scores goals, and we need poacher goals. That's the direction we're going, as a team. Obviously, we've slowed the game down. We're building up in possessions, things like that. Any idea who those injured players may know? I sent some messages out, but I haven't heard anything back yet. So we'll see if I find out before the end of the live, then I will tell you. But yeah, we're changing the way that we do things. We're changing the way that we do things. Yeah, Gyökeres doesn't score a lot of headers either, for sure. It is a concern I have. And I think that we need to, the more we become a possession-based team, the more we need somebody to score from inside the box. And that is where I think, I'm not saying Delap cannot become that guy, but he's not that guy right now. He just isn't. It's going to be like, I don't want to get another player. We might as well bring Rashford back and play him at 9 because he has the same skill set. He has the same skill set as Liam Delap. Pick up the ball, run, create a chance, and shoot. Okay? Like, that's what he's done. And so we might as well play him at 9 and bring him back and do that. There's no reason not to. We could play Garnacho at the 9. He does the same thing from the wide area. Pick it up, drive, and shoot. But we've been doing that for ages. But we haven't had a player who, is actually a box striker. Delap is a terrible passer too. It's like, so no, I don't think he's a much higher level technically than Rashford. I think that's kind of crazy. Like, Delap doesn't pass. He's a poor passer of the ball. He's not really great in link up. He quite literally just picks up the ball and runs with it and scores. Like, that's all he does. Okay, and it's a good talent. It's a good talent, but he's not like some crazy interplay link up, player that is bouncing off of the front three, like creating amazing chances. You can look at what he does with the ball to feet. He can turn, he can take a man on, he can dribble towards the goal, and he can shoot really well, and he's very good at it, and he's very fast. But he is not like a player who is doing a ton of interplay, of passing, of playmaking, or anything like that in the slightest either. But yeah, I really think we need a true out and out number 9. I would much rather see us go for I think Osimhen and Samu Aghawa are the best. Osimhen, if you're going for like the best player right now that fits the best, and Aghawa if you're going for the best on potential. And that would be ideal. So obviously this is a big priority for United. It's a very, very big priority for United. It's one that they really want, and that they need a solution to, for sure. Because right now we don't have it. And I mean, there's always a world where it changes by summer, and randomly, we start performing a lot better at striker. I've said that before, but I somewhat doubt it. I don't think, I don't think that I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that I don't think we're going to solve our problems with who we have. I just don't see it. Yeah. So we'll see. There's going to be more names that will pop up. They have watched Agawa. Question is whether he forms into a target. It's just a name I think would be very, very good, but they're expensive too. So let's move on to PSR and talk about it. I think that, so on the PSR side of it, right? Again, if you watch my video, you understand that we have to spend. I really don't care what's mentioned in the article. There's a lot of players out there being watched. I mean, I'm not knocking the article. It's not the entire piece of the puzzle. It's not every player being watched. It's not every single player being watched. Anyway, so I've seen a lot of panic over PSR in specific, because of the vote that PSR was remaining, and a lot of like, well, this is terrible news for United. They're not going to be able to spend. They're not going to be able to do anything. And then you have Amorim today saying that we're sell to buy. Okay, now this is all, how would I put it? It's all okay. It's all like understood. We kind of went through all of this. Actually, let me show something else first. Hold on 1 second. If we go to last season and look at our transfers, we were also sell to buy, because you got to understand what sell to buy means, and I'll explain it. Last year we sold McTominay for 30 million in profit, Greenwood for 26 million in profit, just going by euros because that's what's on this report. Wan-Bissaka, I don't think we made a profit on, but we at least broke even. We might have made a little money. We sold Willy Kampwala for a little bit of money. We sold Hannibal for a little bit of money. We sold Palestri for a little bit of money. We sold Alvaro for a little bit of money. Profit. And then we spent since then about 246. We also shed the wages of Varane, Martial, and I think a little bit more in terms of wages. We shed a fair bit of wages, like 500,000 in general. Okay, so we need to sell to buy, but we were also sell to buy last summer, and we spent 200 million, because it's also an understanding of what sell to buy means. When we look at like the problem that we've had, this whole financial chart. We know that they're working to reduce club expenses pretty dramatically, right? We know that they want to have less to no club borrowings. This is wage cuts. But not wage cuts, rather. This is like staffing cuts, things like that. All those expenses being cut. We know that they're reducing all of these things to try to get the losses and expenses, down to a more reasonable level. This somewhere to like 275 million for the total costs of non-player wages and things like that. That they're trying to reduce all of these things down to a more reasonable level so that we're not making this massive significant loss and we're bringing things down to a more reasonable level. And then they want to continue that as well. So that's what they need to do. But at the same time, we can't increase this, right? We can't just start spending more on player wages and amortizations. We can't afford to do that. But we also really can't afford to spend less. You can't save your way into becoming a top team, right? So about half of our player wages and is about half is on wages that we spend and half is on amortizations. In terms of the overall expense here, there's actually a lot more than this. Wage reduction. So when you look at sell to buy and what we can do, the goal is maybe reduce this a little bit in the short term by going for younger players, but it's that we can't increase it, but we still have to be able to be viable. So you have a couple of things here. Ericsson. There's one more free agent departure. Who am I missing? Johnny Evans. Okay. Ericsson. This is 10 million. These are your sell to buys, okay? We can, in the short term, decrease our wages and improve, yes. But in the long term, not necessarily. Lindelof is I think it's like 7.5 million. Evans is like 5 million. Okay. So those are the guaranteed ones we have right now. We actually technically save another, I think it's 2.5 million on Sancho because we're still paying like 50,000 a week or something like that. Does Tom Heaton expire? Contract expire, I should say. So, that might be another 2.5 million, something like that. No, I think these are honestly in pounds. That's kind of the scary part. So when you total what we already have saved from just wage reductions coming off the books, it's 27.5 million a year. Okay. A year. That's important to note. This is a yearly cost. All right. It's a lot of money, actually. If we total this in terms of transfers, let's say we spend a fee of 80 million, cost equals 20 million per year, right? And then wages equals 150K a week. We can afford that, okay? So you could afford a big one, that's not enough in terms of wages. So let's balance it out. Let's say we spend about 60 million in wages, or in fee for 15 million, and then we can spend, sorry, my math is off there, 12 million, and then we have 300,000 a week to send out. So yeah, this is like 2 players. This is like Kenda, all right? This is like Kenda for 40 million and then 125K, and then you still have a decent amount of money left over, or it's Osimhen, or it just funds Osimhen, right? So it gets us a part of a way through our budget with those departures. Okay, now add in that when Sandro's obligation kicks in, we gain another. So let's look at it like this. Free wage savings equals like a 70 million, but let's say a 60 million budget. something like that. All right. Our wage savings save us 60 million spend. All right. Well, now Sancho's amortization saves us a lot. It's not 24 million actually, because it's 72 divided by 5. It's 14 million. We get to write it off. So it's going to save us 14 million per year when we get that money to write off the remainder of his fee. Okay. So we get that. Well, that 14 million, you could add it up and say that, okay, this is Osimhen. This is your striker, right? Like, this is your striker. You can get any striker on our list. You can get them for this money. All right. Then with Sancho money, you can get Kenda, basically. Okay. So that's why I said in that PSR video, looking at the budget, that kind of regardless of what happens, we could probably get your striker and your Kenda or similar for whatever is already coming off of the books. Then you've got to look at, like, obviously all these other factors can be massive, right? I mean, if Rashford goes, it's 40 million in profit. Well, with 40 million in profit, you can spend, I mean, that's another 100 million in transfers, essentially, plus wages with some money left over. I like to look at wage reduction more than I like to look at profit, because profit is one time, whereas wage reduction is regular, right? So if you ignore the profit aspect of this, right, and you go, well, Rashford's wages would be 15 million. Casemiro's wages, 15 million. If we can shed all of Anthony's wages, 5 million. Malasia's probably like 3 million. So if we were able to shift these 4 players, it gives us another 40 million. It gives us another 100 million, right? So yes, we're sell to buy. Then there's the amortization subtraction on those players too. So yes, we are sell to buy, but just by moving off, half of these are guaranteed, right? We can do half of our summer budget on what's already guaranteed. These players leaving. The other half of our summer budget, we need more players to leave. So it's not really scary. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. Magic Hat said we had an 88 million hole. Yes, the next season it would be a little bit tighter potentially. But it would be a little bit tighter potentially. But remember, we're talking about not increasing. That's why we can't increase. The thing that Magic Hat did not factor in is it's the 40 million, 50 million a year in savings that we will make this season and next season based on those budget cuts. Well, because that's your whole. That's 100 million over 2 seasons made up for. That's the factor that has to be caught into this. If you didn't have those savings, we would have to cut this way down to be compliant moving forward. But the savings that we're making essentially cover that large hole that we have, because that assessment was correct. But it does not, if you read through it, it doesn't factor in. It doesn't factor in that aspect, right? I could find it on Twitter. But I believe I'm correct in stating that statement. Magic Hat or whatever it is. I probably can't find it now, but yeah, regardless, that's the issue. It has to include the savings. It has to include the savings. If you got to include the savings in there. Otherwise, yes, that's why the savings are necessary. But that's a great demonstration of the point that I was making in that PSR video, Without they need, I think I said in the in that PSR video, it's like 80 million that they needed to cut it by, and they were going to try to save 40 or 50 per year with the savings, but then we need to get back into Europe to increase the revenues, because that's the other factor, right? Like, this is all savings. Everything we're looking at here is based on savings. If we can get this up, then we're not losing any money, right? And that's the goal in the long term. Not even just the long term. If we get back into Champions League, then the revenue goes up. And this is without Europe. This is without Europe. If we can get the revenue up alongside these cuts, alongside not increasing our wages and amortizations, then, then so be it, ideally. So, yeah, I mean, if we add this up in an ideal summer, we would be able to save a lot. And this isn't even technically an ideal summer. I think this is even a semi-realistic summer. You can get a wage reduction equals, what is all of that together? It's like 25, 55, 65. It's like 67.5 million in wage reduction, which is kind of crazy. And that's not even counting like Mason Mount, Luke Shaw, these guys who haven't even been making it on the pitch. That's how bad it's been, honestly. Like, isn't that nuts? Like, our football wages are 190 million, okay? We're talking about right here about getting rid of 67.5 million, and they contribute at the moment nothing. You understand how bad this is? 67.5 million out of our 190 million we're talking about getting rid of this summer, and we wouldn't lose anything. And that's without considering Luke Shaw and Mason Mount for another 20 million. Half of our wages do not contribute on the pitch. Unbelievable, right? Then there's amortization subtractions if these occur. I don't know if Anthony can be sold. I'm not going to lie to you, because, I mean, we need 27 million. It's more likely that we would get like I think 27 million we still owe on Anthony at the end of the season. We probably would need to do like a loan plus obligation for like 15 million the following year, and that might be a way we can count it on the next time. So, but maybe he will get a move for 27 million. He's doing well in Spain, so maybe he will get a move for 27 million. But let's say we can shed this. It's not 27 million. It's like 14 million, right? Why is my math? What's wrong with my math? It's like 16 million. He actually needs like 30 million. So maybe we take a little bit of a hit here, though. We take a little loss, but we shed it. So maybe we get it like 12, right? And then Malacia is like nothing. It's like 2 million or something like that. So if we can do a wage reduction of 67.5 million and an amortization reduction of like 28 million. Oh my God, we still owe money on Casemiro too. That's the crazy part. Then, that overall, that adds up to like 95 million a year. Well, 95 million, you can spend 200 million and wages, and you're not going up. You're actually reducing. Because if you spend 200 million on 4 players and they were all making 150 a week, that would be 7.5 times 4 plus 50. Yeah, you could actually reduce the cost and spend 200 million realistically. You could do all of those things. You could if you just did this, and I haven't actually factored in Casemiro's amortization reduction, which is like another 12. But realistically, if we move on half of our player, the guarantees, we could probably go and spend 100. If we can move on the rest of them, then we could spend another 100 million, and we would actually reduce our overall expenses. So, this is what happens. But then there's other factors too, because it's not factoring in, yes, the profit of selling Rashford, which is a one-time gain, right? The profit if we if we sell others and things like that. It's a one-time gain though that could technically balance things out. So yeah, we're sell to buy, but it's not like that dramatic of a situation. It's not something that we didn't expect. It's not something we didn't know, and it's not something we haven't dealt with even last season. The other factor in this, King Ragnar, could we sell Xerxes Hoyland too? Right. Onana, Shaw, Mount, all right. So I was looking at what I think is realistic, because I think we could shift all of these players pretty easily. Like the toughest one on here right now is to shift is probably Casemiro, but you could definitely, Rashford's gonna go, and I think he'll perform, and I think he'll get a 40 million. Antony's performing, good for him. Malacia is easy to shift. I don't count Onana because I don't think we'll get much for him if we shift him, and we'd have to buy a keeper. So I'm trying to separate Onana out and say whatever happens on the keeper front, it's probably one in, one out, and they're going to balance on the books. Let's just leave these keepers off in their own land and think about it like that way. But you're totally correct. Shaw and Mount could add to this. I have this deep hope deep in my gut. Okay, not about Luke Shaw. I think it's over for Luke Shaw, but it's going to be really hard to move him too. But I have this deep hope in my gut about Mason Mount. This deep hope in my gut about Mason Mount is that after being given a long time to rehab and not training in a Ten Hag team and another summer of fitness and workup under the new regime, that somehow he manages to be healthy for maybe 60-70% of our games and provides a really good option next season. But you're right, it's probably Gas. It's a deep, deep hope. It's deep, real deep, real deep. Really, really deep. But I have this hope. I have this hope still in my bones. Very, 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 very deep in there, though. But yeah. What was the other thing I wanted to say? Shoot. There was something else I wanted to say on this. The other things that I did want to mention that are to me a little bit incorrect, I would say, about PSR in general. Some of the things that have been stated. One of the things that's been stated has been the cost to sack Ten Hag and bring in Amorim. And I did listen to Talk of the Devils yesterday, and I think Andy Mitten's the only one who actually pointed out the problem with that, with saying that. You were going to have to pay to sack Ten Hag no matter what. Whether it was summer or now, you're going to have to pay this. You're going to have to pay to sack him. And whether it was summer or now, you were going to have to pay to bring in a new coach, unless you were getting someone free. And then the discussion would be, did they bring in a manager that they didn't want because he didn't cost anything? The cost for sacking Ten Hag existed because he had a contract given to him by the previous owners. It's a fact. It's a cost that was going to happen no matter what. The only way you wouldn't have had that cost for sacking Ten Hag is if you let him have the entire season and leave on a free at the end of the year, and just let his contract expire. But I think that could have been even disastrous. But it's a moot point. It's an unfortunate cost, but it's a cost all the same. They wouldn't have had to pay the +1. Correct, but it's somewhat debatable on this point. When people are bringing up the money, I don't understand it, because they're saying it costs 20-something million. Well, to let him go and hire Amorim, right? Well, hiring Amorim was 11 million. We know that. So letting Ten Hag go is 10 to 12 million. It was 10 to 12 million without the +1. Now, maybe that's because it's being stretched. Maybe it'll be 10 million this year, 10 million next year. Maybe that's what it is. But it didn't cost us 20 million. So maybe it's being paid out over the course of his contract. That is 10 million this season, 10 million next season. In which case, yeah, then they cost us 10 million by extending his contract in the summer by 1 year. But that hasn't really been confirmed. They said it cost 12 million to let him go. Well, it was going to cost 12 million. You can go back to the articles after the FA Cup. The same people writing about how were writing that it was going to cost 12 million to sack him back then. So I'm a little bit confused about that. Is he on gardening leave where we're paying it out, and if he takes a job, he foregoes the rest of it? Because that was implied by the Dortmund reporters, I think, that it would change things, but I don't know. Regardless, that's really a complete non-factor. It's used as a beating stick that has none. They had to sack Ten Hag one way or another, and they were going to have to pay it out. They didn't give him the contract. If they gave him the contract, they'd be to blame for it. Yeah, Patrick Berger said that, yeah. So that implies to me we're paying it out over the 24 months. So if Ten Hag picks up another job between now and then, it saves us money, and it ends up being virtually non-existent. That being said, the Ashworth thing does, but I remember, it's really funny. It's one of those things where, once again, the price inflates the longer you go on. When we got him in, it was like, I remember the reports were like, no, it was actually like cost us nothing, like 3 million. It was like so cheap. It cost virtually nothing. United got him in on such a great deal. Those were all the reports. And then as months go by, now it was 5 million. Now it was 7 million. And people start to inflate the numbers a little bit. And that's kind of normal, but no, it cost 3 million to bring in Ashworth. That's what the report said at that time, that it was under 5 million to bring him in. So it was a 3 million thing, which is still kind of silly, but everybody has to make mistakes. Everybody should be allowed. The point I've always made on this is that it's not because, every club has to be able to make mistakes. Every club, 87 million to bring in Ashworth. Every single club has to have the ability to make mistakes. City spent how much on Grealish? How much on Nunes? Right? 160 million between the two of them. But they're not in PSR trouble because of it. Why? Because they're financially stable enough that they're allowed to make errors. They're paying their striker 900,000 a fucking week, and they're okay financially on the books because their financial position is in a state where they can afford to make mistakes. Real Madrid spent 100 million on Eden Hazard, and he was a disaster for them. You know what I mean? Like, they spent 40, 60 million on Jovic. Every single club makes mistakes, significant ones, in hiring, in staff, and in transfers. I mean, how much have they paid on hiring and sacking coaches as well? Real Madrid, they did a lot before recently sticking with Ancelotti. They were mixing around as well. You have to be allowed to make some mistakes. Nobody's perfect on transfers. Liverpool have made plenty of mistakes too. Less. It's about minimizing it, right? I think you need to have a good hit rate. 70, 80 million, 70, 80% rather. You got to have a good hit rate. Our hit rate, unfortunately, has been like 20%. That's a problem. It's not been good enough. But you also have to sign players. I don't even think necessarily our hit rate is that bad. Like, for a lot of years, when you look at the players we signed, it wasn't really that we signed bad players. We just overpaid dramatically for them. And we didn't sign with any overarching theme. Like, you look at the players we signed under Solskjaer, good players, right? Like, in theory, most of them were good players. Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, it's not like these are bad players. They're just, Wan-Bissaka was not a 50 million player. He was a prospect right back. It should have been 2025. Certainly we overpaid. Maguire was not an 80 million center back. He was a 40, 50 million center back. We've done that a lot. If Antony was bought for 30 million, it wouldn't be the big deal it is. If Højlund was bought for 40 million, it wouldn't be the big deal it is. If if Casemiro at his age was on normal wages and 30 million, it would have been fine. But he helped us for a couple of years, as a stopgap. Varane probably should have been a little bit cheaper. We don't have a ton of like straight up busts. We have a couple. But we paid way too much money, even for the good players, even for the decent players, I should say. We paid way too much money. But regardless, every club's going to make mistakes. We'll probably not every player we sign is going to work. But we have to be in a financial position where signing one bad player isn't a disaster. It's not like we're ruined financially because we bought one bad player, but it's also, again, about cost. You take like Xerxes, for example. One could say, well, we wasted so much money on Xerxes. If it doesn't work out, it was a bad transfer. Look at how it's happened. Well, okay. Except we only paid 35 million for him. Next season, we could sell him to Italy for 25 million, and it's a wash. It's a wash. It means nothing. It does nothing. It goes nowhere. And then it's like, oh, well, that mistake was already rectified that quickly. The amortization is gone, the money is gone, all of that. And so it's like, okay, so those things don't matter. By doing things the right way, you're able to rectify the mistakes a lot easier. The reason we've struggled so much is because, again, we've also paid so much. So when it doesn't work, we can't sell them. So it's a compounding of factors. You can make mistakes in the market, but if you make expensive mistakes, I mean, look at Barcelona. I'm not saying Barcelona are an example of a good club, but they're still successful. They get bailed out by their academy a lot, which we could use a little bit of too. But they spent 150 on Coutinho. I mean, look at the transfers that they've made, like some absolutely insane things that a lot of clubs have done. So it's like, it is what it is. We have to be able to, we have to be in a financial position where we can make mistakes. Where we can make mistakes. We have to be in that position where we can make mistakes. There's no doubt about that. Otherwise, it's impossible. Otherwise, because you're going to. It's a guarantee you are going to make mistakes. It's what's going to happen. What would have been the alternative to PSR? It might have been squad costs, like you can only spend up to a percentage of your revenue on on costs. Which would have been a little easier if that was the only thing, but we still can't be losing 100 million a year. That's irrelevant. You have to understand their fans would never accept what we are doing for that long. What are we doing, though? That I don't understand. Like, what are we doing? But yeah, that's the situation with PSR. So it's ugly, but it's manageable because it's the things we have to do anyway to solve it. We have to shed like I said, when you look at that chart of players and wages and all of that, it is literally half. Let me get the right button. Half of the money of our spend, practically, of our wages is on players that aren't contributing. When you add in Shaw and Mount, it's literally half our wages. It's 97 million out of 190 million is on players that aren't contributing. That's the problem. That's why we're crap. So it is what it is. In terms of other deals, as I mentioned there, I still have heard very, very strongly about Kenda, about this deal being pretty well lined up. I still have heard very, very strongly about that. Yeah. I've still heard very, very strongly about Kenda being lined up, and I think that it's like it's not official. There's no bids. There's no like everything's all set. But it's pretty much there, you know. Um, it's pretty much always been there. Um, and it's I think it's going to happen for sure. I think it's going to happen for sure. Once it looks extremely likely, and like I said, when you look at the departures that are happening, when the Sancho deal goes through, all of these things go through, then we can afford it, and we can afford a striker. Does Kenda want the move though? I don't think that's an issue in the slightest. Um, I don't think that's an issue at all. Yeah, we can't bid till he turns 18, and for price, I think under 50 million pounds. Yeah, when it was the last time I heard, I said it was. I think it'll be about 50 million euros. I think it'll be 40 million plus 10 or 20 or something like that. So I think that's realistic. So then once we do that and a striker, then there's the sales and things like that. And pending those sales, it's midfielder, center back, and another forward. Right? You can get with the other movements like Casemiro leaving, the other departures, you can get the midfielder, you can get a center back, and I think a left center back is definitely becoming an option. There was a actually fairly credible report about Huijsen, about United looking at him, but I'd also definitely come back and look at Braithwaite again. He had a great game against Liverpool. I keep watching him now and again. He had a very good game against Liverpool. I still think he's a quite a good player at the right value. That solves a big problem. He's been quite good under Moyes. Yeah, since Moyes has come in, he's been a lot better. And he's had an interesting like arc, of like he was he plays at the kind of the behest of the coaches and their style, but he's a very good player. I think he would solve a lot of problems. The thing is, he hasn't agreed a new contract. So this summer, I think, is the last time that Everton can get any decent money for him. He wants to make a move to another club. He's wanted to make the move. I'm not saying he doesn't like Everton, because he does. He wants to make a move to another club. He'll have 2 years left in summer. So it's like the last summer that they can cash in. We valued him at 50 million. I think, what did we end up bidding? 55 million last year, the total. Yeah, Wolves and Everton getting relegated would help us a lot. Yeah. Valued him at 55 million last year. So I think we'd be willing to put up 40 to 45 this year, and I think they would take it. I think that they would take it. Yeah, Liverpool are scouting him, and they might go for him. But I think that we would take that kind of deal. So yeah, I don't think that either will get relegated either. But so those are good options. Those are some good options there too. I think we'll look back at that again. I think we have to keep that in mind at least, and we'll see if we make an approach. So, but yeah, I think again, when we can move some of these other players on, we'll get a midfielder in. We'll get a center back in. And then the forwards, it's really going to depend. If we sell Garnacho, we go for someone like Cunha. If we don't sell Garnacho, then we won't. We won't be able to afford a striker, a big striker, and a top number 10. But yeah, the budget is worth mentioning and looking at, for that reason alone. If we just go back to this really briefly one last time. The initial spend can get us what we need. We need another wingback and we need a striker. If we can move, Casemiro, Anthony Malacia, Rashford out, well, that's going to fund a midfielder, a center back. But then it's really going to depend on, on things like Garnacho. Things like Garnacho as to whether we go big in the front line or not. But also if we sold like Xerxes, or if we sold, but we're not going to make a lot of money on those. So we'll see. But it's all okay. It's like it's okay. The whole situation is okay from a transfers perspective. They have deals to line up. They have deals to get done. We'll see how it goes. At the end of the day, we will be able to spend, but the PSR factor is massive. The PSR factor is massive. So midfielder and a center back, we should be able to do both. If as long as we move players, Casemiro has to be sold, but he would only have a year left, so you should be able to move him on. But yeah, I would say we'll focus on Kenda and a striker first, and then again, depending on the rest of those departures, they'll have the ability to do more. And then depending on significant sales, like Rashford's profit, Garnacho profit, Mainu profit. I'm not saying that we should sell Garnacho or Mainu, but those all would give us a big boost to things as well, potentially. So we'll see. Moving on to Sir Jim tickets, all of this kind of stuff. That's very understandable. He flew in yesterday to have a meeting at Carrington to meet with the fan advisory board about ticket prices and things like that. I definitely think that, like, I think from a ticket price standpoint, when I look through the numbers, I'm trying to think of it. Like, let's say you raise the tickets on average. I want to do a little bit of math here. If you raise the ticket prices on average by 10 quid next year, and it's 76,000 tickets per game, right? Something like that. And then how many games would you have? Maybe 25 or 30 between cups and everything. It's like 22 million in revenue by going up 10 quid or something like that. So you can see why they would think about it. However, like, I don't know what it is now, the average price or anything, right? No, hold on. I'm not saying that they should increase it. I'm not saying they should increase it. I understand why they would look at it. However, that seems like a lot, isn't it? Like, I don't know what the average ticket price is. Is the average like 40 or something? Like, I know there's the stuff over the $66, right? What is it now? Can someone tell me, like, what is it today? Like, what is the comparable to 66 quid? Right? I know it's all cheap compared to the US, but it's obviously a different world. What is it in comparison to 66? Like, what is it now? In terms of that difference between 40 and 60. And so 42, and they were saying the minimum would be 66. Okay, so that's like a massive increase, right? That's like a massive increase, 42 to 66. Like, when you look at it on a percentage basis, that's like 50%, right? So understandably, that is a huge percentage of increase. And like, one might be tempted because you look at that and say, well, you'd make 30-40 million more in gate tickets right off the bat. But I don't think that's a good idea. When I look at the numbers overall, I think that obviously, once United are better, you can justify going up. If you're paying for, United in the Champions League, the biggest seasons of the year, the biggest games of the year, all of that stuff, you can do it. I think that with the cuts that they're doing, with the other things that they're doing, if they have to increase some ticket prices, it should be whatever, like, that normal yearly amount is that goes up, like, league wide. I don't know, was it 5% or something like that? So that you're going up, $2 or $3 or whatever, right? Like, you're going up $2 or $3, like the normal inflation adjusted or whatever it might be in the short term. So if you go up $2 or $3, for now, then probably that's okay. It still provides a small revenue bump, but then, yeah, I don't think now is the right time either, though. I definitely don't think now is the right time either, right? I think that you've got to delay it. You can't, I don't think you could justify it after this season. If you do a tiny bump and you're cutting everything and you're improving the team, and next season United are competing and they're getting, they're growing and they're building up and they're becoming a competitive team, then I think you can say it, and we want to build the stadium and all that kind of stuff. Then I think one could say, all right, we could go up a little more at that time because the product being delivered is worth more. At least comparable to I don't know what the hell city ticket prices cost. Okay, Richard, we've already covered that. But yeah, I don't think they should, because I do think that there's things like, I think it's rough. I think it's rough that they have to cut staff. I think it's rough that they have to cut staff, but necessary. And it doesn't affect the customer at the end of the day, right? It doesn't affect the customer. It doesn't affect the product, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. But I do think that, it's not the right, like, they have to figure out how to get away with not raising the ticket prices on fans and just do business well for at least the next season, and then they can look at it and reevaluate it again the following season. I still don't think they go up 50% or something like that. Maybe once you have the new stadium in 5 years, 66 quid for a ticket, it would be fair. But yeah, I don't think, I personally, like, I've evaluated it a bit. I still think, like, I have a few different thoughts on it, obviously. But when I went through the numbers on the PSR video, I looked at it and I thought they could improve the team and fix the finances probably without raising ticket prices. It's just that ticket prices are obviously like a guaranteed income stream, because people still buy them, unfortunately. That's part of the problem here, and I don't think that that's correct. Like, it's a very capitalist view that I don't think is right. But if they raise them to 66, the problem is they'd still sell out. You know what I mean? And that's super tempting for anybody involved. I don't think they should. I think they should avoid that temptation. I think it's a good thing to see Sir Jim meet with the fan advisory board on this, though, and fly in. One of the things that obviously makes a difference, for years, a lot of the complaint about the Glazers was they don't communicate, right? They don't show up. They're not there face to face. And you get 600, and this is where I think it's a bit ridiculous. You get, 10 negative stories a day. 10 negative stories a day. And then Sir Jim goes and meets with the board, fans board, in person. One little story from the Daily Mail that's not even picked up by aggregators. That's not picked up by any big news outlets, and that's not run anywhere. This is kind of the hypocrisy I'm talking about. It is bizarre to me. We've heard more negative about Ineos doing the right things than the Glazers over the last few months. Like, all the complaints, all the things. The Glazers are wasteful. They're running the club into the ground. They're overspending. They blow money on transfers. They never show up. They never talk in person. Now Ineos are doing all of those things, and the stories are all negative or being ignored when they do something positive. Like, why are there no articles flying around about, again, the owners actually showing up in person and meeting with fans? I don't understand that. I don't get that. It doesn't really make any sense to me. These are the things that we want. These are the openings of real dialogue. I can guarantee you that that meeting did a lot more than someone, calling him a rat from his car or something like that. Like what? But yeah, I think that they should not raise ticket prices. I think they could raise them, the 5% or whatever it might be. It's because the outcome is still bad, the performance on the pitch, right? And I think that that's kind of the bullshit at the end of the day. That's kind of the bullshit at the end of the day. It's all because we're not playing well. Let's be real for a second. Why doesn't everybody just stop for 1 second and admit the truth? It's because United aren't playing well. Every decision is praised when we're good. Every decision is criticized when we're playing poorly on the pitch. It's what always happens. I mean, Duncan Drasdo, he's the chair of CEO of Must, right? He retweeted a funny tweet that I thought was interesting the other day. It says, it's a guy named Pete Molyneux on Twitter. He's got a lot of followers. He's a season ticket holder since 1964. He writes for the United We Stand magazine. And he said, my experience over many seasons is that if United are playing badly, then nothing seems right. Conversely, from 93 to 2013, no one cared about mice, rain, or prices. I can't describe how bad the pies were at Old Trafford between 68 and 74. Hope this helps. That's a very valid view from, I don't know, from obviously a very, very long time fan who wrote for, Andy Mitten's fan magazine and things like that for 5 years and has been around a long time as a season ticket holder and someone where, obviously their opinion has some weight. And I think that's the truth, right? If we're playing well, alongside all of these things that are happening, nobody would care right now, and you'd be getting a lot of positive stories. The problem, though, is that the things that are happening now are the things that have to happen before we play well. Because you have to have things in order off the pitch to perform well on the pitch. To play well, to do transfers that we need to do, to fix things, to build the team that is going to be competitive at the end of the day. These are the things that have to happen, but it doesn't fix in one day. In 22-23, nobody cared about, and it's kind of sad to see that sometimes. I'm not saying nobody cared because there's always been people who cared, but what I know is that you've got this small batch of guys who were very diligently complaining about the Glazers and the situation that was ongoing, right? This small batch, this small percentage. And when United are good, this huge other batch of fans, 50, 60%, they don't get riled up. They're, all summer, oh my God, you can go back and look at the tweets under when we signed Lenny Yoro. Oh my God, Ineos have changed our lives. Oh my God, best owners ever. Oh my God, it's a different world. Oh my God. And those same people, a few months later when we're not winning, everything's bad. And this is a group of people that move with the waves, and that's really the truth of it at the end of the day. And that's why they can't be too reactive, but they have to make the right decisions at the same time as well. When we're playing well, at least the problem is that even when we were doing better, there were these huge issues under the radar that needed to be solved. When we were playing well, we needed these budget cuts. When we were playing well, we needed to fix a lot of the shit that's going on, unfortunately. But we didn't. And so now we have to do it while we're also playing poorly. And it is what it is. I mean, there's no way around this. That's the kind of the truth of it. These things aren't going to change. This is agreed. This, to me, this is not reactive decision making. It's proactive. Reactive would say we're playing shit, so we need to delve into more debt to get better players so that we're not playing shit in the short term. Proactive thinking is we're going to have to suck it up and live with it. And then, because in the future, it's going to make things better. People were protesting back in 2005. I didn't say nobody was, but it is a small percentage of the fan base. Because everybody still goes to games. You know? They're still giving the Glazers their money for the last 20 years. I know there's a percentage of people who gave up their tickets, who gave up their season tickets, who protest and who've done this, and who've walked away, and who've protested no matter how good or bad we've been. But the majority of fans are reactive. They're loud, they're cheer, they're happy in the ground when we're doing well, and not when we're not. And that's fine. It's understandable. You don't expect fans to have to go to a football match and spend the entire time worrying about the ownership. That's crazy. They shouldn't have to do that. I don't think people have to do better than that. It's not even a criticism of the fan base. That's just natural. People shouldn't have to go and constantly think about it or not be allowed to enjoy football or anything like that. But it absolutely changes on the basis of what's going on the pitch in terms of the volume, the volume of protest, the volume of concern, the volume of all of that. It's almost all tied to the pitch. If United were winning league titles right now, we wouldn't be hearing about the problems with the budget cuts. I guarantee it. Nobody would be caring. People would be saying, yeah, ruthless owners want to keep us on top, That's the truth of it. Amy Webb's, good point. Good point. And there's other demonstrations of this across the board, but we'll have to live with it. Yeah, and part of it is like, yeah, sure, that Amram can't be blamed because he's just got here. So it has to be the owners. So it has to be the owners. And so it is what it is. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't think they should raise ticket prices. The other stuff, it's all necessary from a PSR perspective so that they can spend on transfers. Because again, at the end of the day, they don't actually want to cut the budget down because then we won't be successful on the pitch. We have to figure out how to get more out of what we're spending while also spending less as a whole. Both things have to occur. So hopefully that they will. Let's move on to Tottenham. I hope it's the same for us, but look, we've all got concerns. We have to see it. We have to see it improve. There's no guarantees that what Ineos are doing is going to work out. But it's, of course, understanding why they're doing it is worth being noted. And then we'll see what happens. What do you mean I'm using facts that twisted? They're doing what they have to. I don't think anything I said is anything but completely factual and misleading. Like I said, I don't think they should. The things that I don't think they should do are things like raising ticket prices. I won't defend that. If they go up to £66 or things like that, I think it's too much. I think there's a reasonable small amount of yearly increase. But yeah, they have to go. They have to. But I wouldn't defend that. But everything that they are doing otherwise is 100% necessary, and it's a fact. It's 100% necessary. There's nothing else about that. There's nothing that they're doing that's just you don't have to do it. They could do what they're good. I know they could, but that would just be PR. So I guess we'll see. I mean, that's kind of the funny part. All the accusations of PR. I'm sitting here saying like they're doing stuff that's not good for their PR, They're not doing anything for PR purposes. That's how little they care about the PR. But, I didn't say if we're winning, no one will say anything. I didn't say if we're winning that nobody will say anything either. But that means they did a good job. But so far, but the thing is, it's not that quick. It's not that quick. You can say if they did a good job, but you can't. But that's what I'm saying. It's totally wrong. You can't say they'll come in and fix it in one window. One window they've had to be able to spend one summer window rather, and bear in mind that they only got in February of the same season. So it's like, it's not fixed in 1 year. But if you expect that, you're the one in the wrong, that it's going to be fixed in one window. They didn't have 2 windows because financially we spent the maximum we could spend. The literal maximum we could spend has been spent. And it's not even close. We need at least probably another summer, another full season with their manager in place, another, none of this is going to turn around in 1 year. That's the thing. No matter what, every decision could be perfect, and it may not be better than it is right now. Because again, let's look, all right? We're going to go back to the chart, and it'll make perfect, and you'll see it. Which one of these was their signing? Oops. Okay. Which one of these was their signings? Which one of these was their signings? We just looked at the waste. Which one of those was their signing? Which one of those are they responsible for? None. They're responsible for none. They're responsible for 0 of the players that we want to be rid of right now. None. This is why we're not good. Because half of our money is tied up in players signed previously that do nothing for us, that can't even make it on the pitch. Then you add in Luke Shaw. Well, they didn't sign him. They didn't give him an extension. You look at Mason Mount. They didn't sign him. They didn't give him an extension. You look at Andre Onana making mistakes on the pitch. They didn't sign him. So it's like half of our football is a waste right now, and they were not responsible for any of that. So this summer, they have an opportunity to get rid of that waste and fix it. They were not able to do this last year. It was impossible to get rid of these players. It was impossible. So half of the players that we have is a waste. They can't, now they can do something about it. That's why it takes multiple years. No matter what we did, there was no way to fix it in one season. There's just no way to fix it in one season. Maybe we could be a little bit better than where we are today, but hardly. Hardly. Maybe it would have been better. Would we be better if we got Emerim in the summer with a full preseason? I'm sure we would be. We'd be 3 months ahead. 6 months ahead, probably. Let's be real. We'd be 6 months ahead. Would we be better? Yes, we would be better. But it's not like we'd be back at the top. The better would be we'd be back to where we were 3 years ago, where we were 5 years ago, where we were 7 years ago, where we were 8 years ago, where we were 9 years ago. But we wouldn't be back at the top. We'd just be a little bit better this season. That's not the end goal. For the Glazers, that would have been enough. Challenging for top 4, great. Well, it's the same trajectory even if we're a few months behind. Right, but top 4 contention is not the goal. I agree it would be nice if we were in contention for top 5 this year. For that, we're still in the Europa League. We win the Champions League, then it makes no difference. I mean, we win Europa, it makes no difference, right? We get in the Champions League, we win a big competition. Then, that's it. One, we don't know. If we end the season and we win Europa, it's a success. Then suddenly this whole season is a success. All the chaos, all the drama, all the mistakes, actually they weren't, and it's a success. We've won Europa. We've got into Champions League, right? That could still happen. And so it's kind of like, It's kind of like, well, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so it is what it is in that front. We don't really know. Um, we don't really know whether you or not. Worst case, though, we're probably six months behind. And so I'm like, all right, the long term goal, 2028. That's the goal to win the league. That's the stated goal. That's where we have to get to. So we'll see where we end up. Um, like I said, I don't think it's perfect, but there's definitely been mistakes made. But at the same time, it's we were never going to be that good this year. We were never going to be that good this year. So we were never going to be great this year, no matter what. With the changes that all need to go into place. And I think after this summer, though, I think next season we do need to be a lot better. We did not cost 30. The club didn't. They did not cost the club 35 million for firing Ten Hag. You are gonna have to do that anyway. That's just bullshit. It's bullshit. It's just wrong. That's where it starts to get totally off the rails and be completely unfactual. You are going to have to hire someone anyway. You were going to have to sack Ten Hag anyway. No matter when, how, or whatever, it was going to cost the same amount of money. Debatably, it might be 10 million next year that they cost us in keeping Ten Hag. Debatably, but we don't actually know that for a fact at this point in time. And Ashworth cost 3 million. So debatably, 13 million in mistakes. Which, when you compare it relative to, it's the cost of Malacia, which one would throw away and say, that's the cost of Malacia. You throw that money away and say it was just a bad transfer. But suddenly, this is like dramatic, horrible. Like, it's not that big a difference. It's not that big of a difference. Let's move on. Let's move on to Tottenham now. We haven't done one of these in a while. We don't know who's injured at the moment. So, because there's a couple of injuries, I have not heard anything as of yet. Yeah. So we don't know if there's new injuries. We don't know if someone is sick and gonna miss out. We don't know any of this. So we're just gonna have to just pick on the basis of our normal thing. Yeah, we're just gonna have to go on the basis of our normal thing. Yeah, there's some small rumors, but I don't honestly know. I don't honestly. None of those are particularly valid at this point in time. None of those are particularly valid at this point. So we're just gonna have to go with it. We'll start with Ahmad. Do we want to see him at right wing back or right 10? I'll add Cheeto in. I don't think he's actually in contention to play, but we'll start with Ahmad. I think we all want to see Ahmad at right wing back and Dorgu at left wing back. I think that's what we all want, right? I think we all really, really want to see that sometime in our lives. All right, so we're getting Ahmad at right wing back as per almost always. I think this is what we all want, right? You'll play Dorgu at right wing back. I hope not. So then who would you play at right 10? Garnacho, Hoyland, Xerxes, Bruno? I don't know. Front three gets confusing, man. starting to mix like Kobe Mainu in. I don't even like. I after the last game, I said I really think we should. I would rather we play like Ugarte and Collier deep and get Bruno into the front. If you won't play Mainu there, then keep moving Bruno deep, in my opinion. Bruno left 10, but shouldn't Garnacho play? I think Garnacho 100% should be playing right now. I think we need his directness. I think he's been, good. In terms of our front three, I don't think anybody's been better. You know what I mean? So like recently. So yeah, all right. Yeah, we need some speed, especially playing against Tottenham. They've got this high line, right? Like, don't forget that. We've got this high, and the thing is, it's a big game. It's a big game. It's a big game for sure. I know, but we just don't have any pace. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, Xerxes scored last game, so our forwards can score. Xerxes actually, by the way, wait, let me see if I can, I'll look this up in a second. By the way, hold on. I'll do this vote real quick, and I'm going to come back to this. Xerxes has negative pace. I don't actually think he's that slow. It's just his style of play is very weird. Not weird, just, it's floaty. It's just floaty. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I'll show this in a second. I was saying, by the way, Xerxes, right? I looked at this in the midweek on the striker front. He's accumulated almost 4 expected goals in only 850 minutes, which he actually gets better chances than Ahmad does. Ahmad scores better. But like on a per minute basis, he's about equivalent with Garnacho in getting chances. And only Bruno's actually done better on a per minute basis. Well, not even. Xerxes actually, I'd have to do some math here. Hold on. 3.81 divided by 850. 0.004. Okay. 6.98 divided by 1309. 0.005. Okay, so that's slightly better. Wait, am I doing that backwards? I'm probably doing that backwards. Right. So an expected goal per 223 minutes for Xerxes. Every 187 for Garnacho. 237 for Bruno. So Xerxes, on balance, accumulates more expected goals and goals per minute than anyone but Garnacho. I find that interesting. I find that kind of interesting. Like, it is interesting that he does actually get kind of better at accumulating and getting into goal scoring chances despite his lack of pace than almost anybody else. I think he has some decent like instincts. Like we saw that against Leicester. It was good instincts there, but yeah. For a false 9, it is interesting. It is interesting to me. It is interesting to me. It's very interesting to me. What do you think about the protests to come? I think that fans always have a right to share their voice, and I'm always a supporter of free discussion. I think that there are... Look, here's the thing that's true, right? Here's the thing that's totally true about protests, right? Where I think it's important still to understand. most of the reasons why it's even hard for Ineos to fix things are still because the Glazers are latched onto the club, right? Like if the Glazers tomorrow told Ineos, "Hey, 600 million, wipe the debt out, and you get 8% more equity," they'd do it. We'd have no debt. We'd have, the costs of running the club would come down. It would help with our PSR situation, and it would give Ineos a step closer to control if the Glazers diluted their shares in order to do that. But they won't because of greed. So it's always worth continuing to protest the root reason why things are the way that they are. And I know that that's understood by a lot of people. This is not about the last few months. It's about 20 years. And as long as that's always still understood and still at the core of it, then great, because that's what's being protested. That's what should be protested. Is the vote feature not is the vote feature not being funny? All right, well, that's just YouTube. I got nothing to do with that. Garnacho. All right. Well, let's go Dorgu, Dalo. Is the debt included in the shares of the club? The debt can only be excluded if equity is given. The debt can only be excluded if equity is given. Like if Ineos go shift the debt for equity, then the debt will be excluded. All right, let's go with our midfield pairing. All right. I'm giving you 3 options. We already have Bruno in the front, so he can't even be included deep. Remember, this is what you guys want, right? But yeah, look, there's pace. That's a good point too, right? We don't have a ton of pace in the front line, but we do have it in the wide areas now. Ahmad, Dorgu, Garnacho, that's kind of the key, the pace. That's kind of the key. Interesting. I still think Ugarte Manu is our best bet for now. And I'd rather see Manu focus in that role and position and grow into it. And as we get more dominant, it becomes a more attacking role. So I'd rather see that personally. You go Keane and Scholes. Oh, the glories we've seen. The wonders. No, I don't think it's discipline issues. I think it's some players. I think it's some players. There has been some illness going around too, which you mentioned about being sick. But so who should be our left center back? It's like Mazraoui or Yoro, right? Like I guess it just depends which side you want them on. Like I'll throw Delict in there. I'll throw Heaven in there. Why not? Yeah. You take Fletcher and Jemba. Oh, yeah. Lenny did look really good there. I think Mazraoui is a better. No, like I think Mazraoui's better on the right. Not necessarily like I think Yoro's actually better in both positions. To be honest, I think Yoro's been incredible. Um, I think Yoro's been incredible. Um, either way, I thought he was really really good. Incredible for what he is as a potential player that's growing. I think he's done really really well given age and where he's headed. I think Mazraoui is better on the right than the left though. I think Mazraoui's better on the right than the left. That being said, yeah, I think Mazraoui's better on the right than the left. I don't think it matters what side Yoro prefers. Long term, he's not going to play on the left because he's not left footed. For the progressions that Emram wants, it's not going to matter. Which side he prefers. He's going to play where he's going to play. But in the short term, I think it's fine. I think Yoro on the right is the right. But Emram doesn't coach Liverpool. Emram doesn't coach Liverpool. He plays his left center back is always left footed. I mean, that's why he keeps buying lefties and why we're looking at more left footers. The hero of the FA Cup here. I love this game. It's the team that can't score versus the team that can't defend. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, you know who's going to play Dallo. Well, I just hope it's Dallo at right wing back. Like, what do I think? I think it'll be Dallo on the right, Ahmad in the front three, and Bruno deep. That's what I think it'll be. That's what I think it'll be. So I don't think that's that bad, mind you, but yeah, that's what I think. Big Baz, Big Barry Maguire. Big Baz, Big Barry, Big Harry. Slab with the freedom. Should have spaces for some of those switches today. And then let's go right center back. Maz, Delict, or who's left? Dallo. Where does a combined Spurs United combine 11? Who's managing them? Because like the funny thing is like you could give Ange United players and it wouldn't work. Because the way that his back line plays and all that is suicidal. It's crazy, right? But you could give Amorim Spurs forwards, and we probably do really well. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I see it. Like, yeah, Spurs squad would actually. That's what I'm saying. Like, if Amorim is the coach, there's a lot of Spurs players I would take, but I wouldn't take a lot of United players under Postecoglou, stylistically. But yeah, you stick like Kulishevsky at a wingback position, or his son up front. Like, holy man, like these are players that would be amazing, frankly, in an Amorim team. That's how I see it. Like Kulishevsky right 10 too. Yeah, either one. It doesn't really matter to me. But like use one of those and Udogi. Yeah. Those are. I think there's a lot of players that you could take and say, oh yeah, under an Amorim team, you would stick them in good. I would put Kulishevsky at wingback, but again, I have the opinion that those are wingers. Those are out to in wingers. But anyway, I just see it differently. There's 6 or 7 Crystal Palace players who walk in the team. I don't think that's the case, honestly. I always think we get over dramatic about that kind of stuff. I mean, Crystal Palace are on like one more point than us, and they're not in Europa, and they're out of the FA Cup, I want to say. So how can they be better than us? They're not. They did beat us, though. But that's just head to head. Madison? Yeah, Madison, yeah. I think we always get a bit over dramatic about teams having so much better players than us when it's more about other factors and fit. Their only shots went in. Onana versus Bayindir is a tight one these days. I don't know. I think how was Onana in the last game? I feel like that goal he could have still done better on. But then Bayindir played against Tottenham, didn't he? And he chucked it in his own net. He conceded it in his own net. Was it Bayindir against Tottenham in that game? He had a fucking stinker in that game. The last time against Tottenham was a stinker. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Onana still. The last time we played Tottenham, Bayindir was a big issue. It's close though. It's about as close as it gets. I don't know who it is. Bayindir might be injured as well, come to think of it. When he said we have issues and players not returning, things like that, that's probably part of it. Bayindir is not really issue. It's not really okay, so Garnacho's out and about for Valentine's Day with his girlfriend, so I think we could assume, or his they're not married. So I think we can assume he's not injured. I guess. That's good. Narrowing it down. Bayindir was ill. I thought he was injured. Maybe he's still ill though. But there was an illness going around. We don't know that it's Ahmad. There's like one little tiny rumor that random person posted that it was Ahmad. We don't know. Maybe it is. We don't know. And I have not seen anything credible, to be honest, from accounts that have had it in the past. But we'll find out. We'll see. I'll probably find out later today. It's whatever. Are we traveling? Where's this game? It's away, isn't it? So we're going to be traveling, so we'll know. We will know, right? They'll travel tomorrow? Tomorrow morning? They went to that primary school the other day. Yeah, that might have been a little while ago, to be fair. Yeah, home was the Bruno Rec. Oh, that was a game. Holy shit. Like, sometimes when people tell me, like, we're worse than we were before, I sit there and I think about those types of games. Like, do you guys remember Tottenham at home? Do you remember that game? We've not had a performance that bad. The first 30 minutes of that game were like... It didn't count, though, you're right. I do not accept that game. We could have lost. I know, if Timo Werner could finish, we would have conceded 10 goals. Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, crazy. I think what helps is when you compare like game versus game. I think it's rather than trying to compare like the overall how we're doing. I think when you look at comparable fixtures, right? Like against Fulham, it was the opener, and then we recently just played them. Was it better or worse? I don't know. I think it maybe was about the same. A late winner, struggled to score. We did control the game more. Liverpool, though, we got shit on at home. And then we went and put in one of our best performances away. So, I think as we go through the second half of the season, looking at like the comparables between the two, that's probably a better measure. You know, we had really bad performances against some big teams like Tottenham, Liverpool, all of that at home. It's tricky. Okay, I think we settled on Onana, didn't we? Oops. All right. So this is what you guys want for the team. I still think this is our best team. I think this is our best team moving forward. Crystal Palace away was better than it was at home, for sure. Yeah. It was still a really irritating game away to Palace, though. I remember that. That was one of those games where, again, like Xerxes was cooking, and then he came off, and we were shit instantly. Interesting. We've had. I'm telling you, over the balance of this season, I think Xerxes been a lot better than he's got credit for. Like, there's a lot of times when Xerxes plays, we're a better team when he plays. I feel like that's like not like he's had a couple weird things like Newcastle. He was playing in the 10 or whatever, and Kobbie Mainoo came on and we shifted things around and we played a lot better from that moment on, even though we still didn't win. But I honestly think that Xerxes been when Xerxes plays as a team, I think we play a lot better. Pretty consistently. I don't think he's been that bad, you know, like I think he's somehow getting judged a lot worse than what he is. You know, he's only had 850 minutes and he scored 3 goals, and I think we're better with him than anywhere else. Than anybody else in that position for sure. Like it's tricky. It is tricky, but I think that we're still a much better team with him. There's frustrations, but like we don't score more goals when he doesn't play. So it's not like he's the problem, you know? We control games better. We create more chances when he plays. We don't score more goals necessarily, but we don't score goals when he's on or off. So what's the difference, right? That's I think the part of it that's kind of funny. So yeah, it is what it is. All right. Actually, you know, there's interesting stats for this. Hang on. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna look at one more thing and then I'm gonna end the stream. But I forget that there's like on-off stats, you know? You guys know on-off stats? I always think there's so many stats missing from football where I wish there were more of them. Where is it? On-off. Here we go. On-off stats. On-off stats are one of those stats I wish there was more of them. Because if we look down here and highlight this row, look. Team success, right? When he's on, we're 0.94 goals better, which is actually pretty significant. Plus minus. On goals against, on goals. So like we're better than when he plays. Like that's what that means. That's generally what on-off stats mean. I'm not trying to pick on Højlund, but I just wanted to make a comparison and see if that's the case for him. Like, what does it show for him? Just to know, like, is this actually useful in the way that it's being presented or not? Look, we're I didn't look at this before, so I wasn't trying to pick on him, but like, holy shit. You know, I mean, that's the data matching the eyes here, right? It's almost a 2-goal swing between Højlund being on and Xerxes being on right now. It's wow. Okay. I honestly I didn't think it was going to be that bad. Yeah, plus some exactly NBA stats are crazy, right? And yeah, that's per game. I did it on a per game basis. Like NBA stats are crazy, and that's the kind of stuff like. And then there's baseball stats. There's things like VORP, right? Like value over replacement, you know, that kind of thing. I just want to see Anthony. Let's like see if this has any value. So it says that we were actually better. Okay, but it's so limited in minutes. It doesn't. The less it's only 141 minutes, right? That's not going to tell us too much. Last year it showed that we were in minus when Anthony was on. That in his first season he was about break even. That probably matches the eye test as well. Like Anthony came on for a couple weird little cameos where we actually were better when he came on, so that does match the eye test. He just has played very little, right? Yeah, I know that in the NBA it's easier because there's 5 players and things like that. But I just want to look through. I mean, it shows like that's so odd. I mean, it depends obviously if you're playing like every minute, then it's a little bit different. But so as we were better when Rashford played this season, which to be fair, we were. I mean, his last time playing, we beat Everton 4-0, so I guess that makes sense too. Unfortunately, let's check Garnacho's. Yeah, I'm quite curious about Garnacho's. I want to see if this works. So it says overall, we've been worse with Garnacho this season. I would say that until the last few games, that's probably true. I think the last few games he's had a big impact, but before that, probably not. Obviously, I don't think I can't like, wait, hold on, wait. Can I? I don't think it shows it on a match basis, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I would say up until the last few games, that would be true. If it were miscellaneous, maybe. No, that's like aerial duels and stuff like that. I wish I could like split it, like I wish I could split it. Yeah, like I wish I could split it up. Like, okay, the last 5 games. But yes, a player who plays as a sub is probably going to be a bit different too. Let's look at Ahmad's numbers here. I would suggest his should obviously be better. Yeah, there you go. Look, positive impact. Yeah, positive impact. Positive impact. Very good. It's just interesting. Like, it's not going to be a be all end all. I mean, there's a weakness to this stat. In that, well, Bruno's not going to work because he's always on. It's not going to tell us anything. We're going to see like 5 minutes when Bruno's off. That's the other factor. Like the guys who play every minute, it's not going to tell us much. Let's look at Maguire. I'm actually curious. Does he show up well here or not? Because he's played a decent amount of games, but also while we've been worse. So like it says Maguire's low on this, right? And I would say that when you look at the games, that probably makes sense. But then on XG, it's positive. So like we've been conceding more goals since he's come on, but we've also been conceding more goals in general. Oh my god, it's almost 2 hours. I am doing a marathon. Like I think the Licks is probably going to be higher, but it's curious. It's curious. I mean, this is obviously there's these other factors on this, but this is it's just interesting. Delict is also negative. So who the hell is good? Who is a positive? Dallo plays every game, so that's not going to count. Let's look at Lenny Yoro. I think it's useful when you're looking at players who, cup games for Maguire and the yeah, you're right. There's that too. A lot of his good moments have been in cup games too, which this is just domestic. Like Lenny Yoro's got a huge negative because he's mostly come into the team, in a bad states often, right? Like he's come on in games we're losing, doing poorly, things like that. So yeah, no. The thing is, it's not going to be positive. On-off is irrelevant to whether we're good or bad. On-off is balanced. For every off, there should be an on, because it's relative. It's like when you're on, unless I'm misunderstanding it, compared to how it's used in NBA. Hold on, let me think. Hold on. Maybe it is all going to be negative. Because we're bad. No, because on-off should be the difference between on and off. Yeah. Right. Minus net goals while they're not. Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be different. It's gonna match. Like it's gonna have to match up. It's gonna be. It's like, do you concede more when they're on the pitch? Yeah. Yeah. That's Ugarte's. But then where's the positives? Because there should be positives to balance this all out. That's part of the challenge. I mean, some of the factors that we changed in the middle of the season. Like is Casemiro gonna show? Yeah, like look, like like Casemiro shows positive because of the game states that he's been playing in too. So that's why it's probably not that useful. See, like Casemiro shows 0.41, but everybody can tell you that that's not true, right? And that's kind of where we lose the value in figuring this out. Like, I think, it is hard to. This is why it's hard in football, isn't it? Because you look at the 11, like Casemiro, if he's coming on as a sub when we're winning, seeing out a game, it's going to naturally affect his on off more positively than it is someone who starts. Or even if you're coming, like you could 70 minutes, you go down 2-0, player comes on, you lose. You lose. The interesting part about I think about forwards, where it's probably very relevant to forwards, is that forwards are usually coming on. Yeah, that's right, Liam. That's correct. It's going to be very different. I think with forwards, it can be maybe a little more useful because forwards are usually subbing on and off in terms of creating. Yeah, Bruno's will look. No, Bruno's will. I don't know. Did we do well without him? That's the question. He's played like every minute. So like, what does it mean? No, Bruno's is great because why would it be great? Why would Bruno's be so good? Because like the 200 minutes he doesn't play were we terrible? When did Bruno not play? That's the question. When did Bruno not play? What was the game he missed through suspension? Oh, because it was Newcastle and we got shit on, right? No, we for sure there was a bad game when he didn't play. Bruno and Ugarte were off. We beat Crystal Palace reserves last season. What's the game? I'm diving down a stupid rabbit hole of wasting time on this live, but like what game did he miss? Okay, these are all cups. So let's see. Everton 4-0. Arsenal or Nottingham Forest 2-3. What am I missing here? What am I getting wrong? Newcastle at home because we were getting battered? Yeah. That's what I remember. Spurs at home, we got a red card. We conceded more goals after that. Right. So so the Spurs and Newcastle game, those are the ones, like, because those two we were really bad when he was off. So even in that like brief moment, we're a lot worse because like we're near even, right? Over the course of the season, we're -2 goal differential. So Bruno would be at a 0 because he plays almost every game. But if in the game and a half that he was off, we lost by 4 goals, then it's going to skew it like dramatically, right? In all of this. So that actually makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Huh. Anyway, interesting thoughts. Interesting. What if I do all comps? Does it help us? Then I'd be curious, like if it adds in like Europa League, things like that into this. He missed Fenerbahce, right. Oh my god. Okay, so FA Cup, he's on Community Shield. Europa League, where he's in the minus a little bit. That's funny. The EFL Cup, he's way in the minus. Why would he be in the minus? Oh, did we play games without him in the EFL Cup? Like, we must have scored goals without him. That's interesting. Let me go back and look at like some other players like Casemiro and Ugarte just to see how this plays out in comparison. I'm not really learning anything now. I'm just kind of fucking around. But enjoy, Richard. Have a good one. See you later. I'm definitely just time wasting now for some reason. I don't know why. I'm getting stun locked by this. Huh? This is interesting. Plus minus per 90. Minus 90. Trying to figure out what this would mean exactly. This doesn't seem to have like data involved in it. Oh, because we... Oh, I don't really understand that. He came off against Arsenal and then we scored? Is that it? No. FA Cup. FA Cup. He came off against Leicester. No, we scored while he was on. Don't know. Anyway, the Barnsley game, we started without him and scored 5. You're right. That's why it's so bad for Bruno in that game. You're right. Because we scored so many in that game that he would have a compared to when he was on. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Interesting. All right. Anyway, that's it. I'm gonna end it here. I've been down this rabbit hole for too long. It's been 2 hours. Thank you all for hanging out today. I will be obviously on Sunday doing a watch along on Big Up. Come join me there. A lot of fun as always. They're great, and even when we're poor, it's helpful having people to hang out with. And I think of it that way. I'm not sitting there, like I say, I'm not sitting there making a big scene, acting, being dramatic. We're just hanging out. We're just hanging out. It's like watching game with people, not watching me for entertainment. It's to watch the football, so that's why we do it. But anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you have Valentine's Day, enjoy whatever you're doing with your family today. Don't forget it. If you have a wife or something, don't forget. And I will see you all later. Okay, have a good day. And hopefully we can get a good result. And against Tottenham, I think it'll help a lot. But a loss would gonna be